Hey guys, Carlos Cortez here with another episode of Scriptures in Wall Street. I'm excited about today. Look, this weekend we're going to be talking about like the Fed, Israel. We're going to talk about all the distractions, the labor markets, the interest rates. Commercial real estate is really taking a hidden path that all you guys that have been listening to us for past 3 or 4 years, you understand that is going to be the Achilles heel that breaks everything. Why a weakening dollar is pretty much imminent with lowering interest rates. So I want to talk about lowering interest rates before we talk about the financials and how to get your retirement war ready. I have something that needs to get exposed here. And I apologize in advance because this is not your typical Scriptures in Wall Street podcast. This podcast is going to be dedicated to the Sutz family. This podcast is going to be dedicated to actually shed light where the dark is at. And Lord knows we got darkness everywhere. And it's our job as kingdom builders, as men with shields, as swords, with our breastplate of righteousness. When we have the armor, it's our job to expose the truth. I'm not here to cater to your feelings. I'm not here to be a positive thinker. I'm not here to be a negative thinker. I'm here to tell you the truth. And what I want to discuss today is going to hit home for many people. It's going to aggravate many people because I know you love the cross and I know you can't stand injustice. And all of America is about pursuit to happiness and obviously justice. We want balance for justice. So I have this unique story that I've been knowing about probably a little over 8 months now. I haven't really talked about it because I didn't know how to bring it up. But now I do. And today's the day. We're going to record this. We're going to talk about it. We're going to expose it. And the end game is a beautiful thing. The end game is a beautiful thing. And so we'll talk about that here shortly. But for now, I would like to bring on Mr. Neal Sutz. And I can't really tell you where he's at because I don't know where he's at, but he's in an undisclosed location, and there's a lot of stuff going on in his neck of the woods and on his plate. So he would like to stay unanimous on where he's actually at, but we are going to bring him on right now. Neal, it's a pleasure to have you, my friend.
Carlos, thank you so much with all my heart and soul for bringing me on, for having the courage to bring me on and to discuss what we're going to discuss today. I really appreciate it on behalf of my 2 sons, my late wife, and our whole family.
You know, I had to say something, if I can be raw with you. When I first met you, I'm like, dude, this guy's, or when I first heard you, this guy's a nut job. Like, what is he talking about? Like, he's all over the place. And then the more I spoke to you, all the pieces actually made sense. It actually made sense. And, you know, we all have, like, God gives us certain spirits, like gifts. I'm sorry. He gives us gifts and that we can discern that spirit. And so what I discerned from you was that you have been a victim of a violent crime. You've been a victim of these terrible things that I want to talk about today. And I want to give you the platform. So this is on a lot of networks now. And I want you to just speak your heart. I really want you to tell them how it is, like in concise possible way, because most of the listeners here, they're here for the financial side of things. And so this is not their typical podcast, but it is so captivating, this story. I had to bring you on. And more importantly, guys, for those of you who don't know the situation, many of you don't, Neal's sons actually were pretty much kidnapped from him. And I'll let him describe that. We also have a lot of videos, and we have some evidence here. And the whole goal for this whole podcast, the whole aim, is actually to help expose this so he can get his sons back. And Neal, if you just want to like kind of why is it that you're here right now? What is the whole aim? So everybody can know. You're better knowing your story than I am, but what is the whole point that you're here on this podcast on Scriptures on Wall Street?
Well, there's the primary aim is for the true information of why my sons were seized by the government of Geneva, Switzerland on July 25th of 2017 to finally get directly to President Trump and get past all of his gatekeepers. In brief, we lived, myself, my late wife, and our two sons, who were then 7 and 3. We lived in Gilbert, Arizona. You know, Gilbert, I know a colleague of yours works there, lives not far from where you used to live, or where my family used to live. I have an autistic son, my oldest, and a younger son. I was a best-selling author, worked as a legal consultant, made films, walked away from a very leftist Democrat family in America when I was younger, very wealthy family, became a follower of Christ. That's my personal background. I was also, when our first son was finally diagnosed with autism, he was about 2.5 years old. Our second son hadn't been born yet. When our second son was born, we decided that my late wife, Courtney, and I decided it was really important to really study about autism and how having one autistic child and another child and the relationship, and get into the details of it. So I started studying about autism. I got licensed with the Arizona Department of Public Safety, DPS, with level 1 fingerprint security clearance, which means that I took care of, in the process of wanting to learn how to be a better father, the best father I could be with a special needs child, I got licensed and did take care of many other special needs children. I worked in elderly care facilities, etc. One of the responsibilities working for DPS, especially holding level 1 fingerprint clearance, which I held my first card from 2014 when my second son was born until 2020, never investigated, never suspended. One of the responsibilities as a mandated reporter is, if you see or are witness to or hear a witness statement of abuse of a child or a vulnerable adult, you are immediately to report it. So in brief, the family I married into, it is no secret, there was an enormous amount on my late wife's side of decades of ritualistic sexual abuse in that family that was documented, dating back generations. I knew about it. When I found out about it, I started speaking out. We had a nephew who had been adopted by my late wife's parents. Won't go into all the details of it. That's in the book that was written about my family by a Swiss banker. It's called SOS Scream of Silence. In short, he had been coming to me, my nephew Austin, for years, and to Courtney, my late wife, saying, you know, Aunt Courtney, Uncle Neal, Grandpa's touching me, Grandpa's touching me, Grandpa's touching me, Grandpa's this, Grandpa's that. We never had any hard evidence. One day, February 20, 2017, this is 7+ years into when we first met and got married. My late wife comes home from having dropped off our nephew with her parents who had adopted him, and hands me her phone, and her hand's trembling. And she hands me her phone and she goes, hun, hun, hun. And she hands me the phone and it gets into my hand, and she collapsed on the floor. I looked at the phone. There was a child sexual exploitation video of my ex-father-in-law molesting my nephew in a bathtub. And the video was being filmed by my ex-mother-in-law. And clearly we went to the authorities with that because we finally had proof. Unfortunately, and so sadly, there are so many young victims and vulnerable victims and even older victims of sexual abuse. And unfortunately, it was our nephew that we turned in the video. And the very short version of what happened is the retaliation against myself, my late wife, and our family in terms of reputation, financial attacks on my business. Again, I mean, it's not a bragging thing to say, but I was a best-selling author. I did sell 700,000 copies of a book. I had 2 films that were in 28 states. I had a very good reputation, no criminal record whatsoever. My ex-family-in-law took retaliation on our little family of 4. We took refuge in Geneva, Switzerland. My mother had been Swiss, so I had dual nationality. We thought we would be safe there. We got there. Unfortunately, because of the and this is in conclusion now, so you know the base story, unfortunately, because of the trauma that my late wife had been subject to when she was a child, started at 3 months old, and she was last abused when she was 21 years old. When she saw the video, she was triggered. And you know very well what that means. It's, you see something, brings back a bad memory. And when she was triggered, the worst of it, the goal when we went to Switzerland was to get her, as everybody knows, Switzerland has the best medical care in the world. If somebody has a terrible disease or they need psychiatric help or whatever, the goal was to go there, protect our kids from her family in a mutual agreement, and get her the best care possible so she could heal from her old trauma and the new trauma that came. Unfortunately, soon after we arrived, she attempted a double suicide with our youngest son, and the chaos began, and the Child Protective Services of Geneva, Switzerland, randomly seized our children, tore them out of my arms, while they had already taken my late wife and put her in a psych hospital and given her Haldol.
Now, was that done on American soil or over in Switzerland?
That was Geneva, Switzerland. And that's really what that was where the confusion began, because the first people that spoke up when we got to Geneva and all of this happened, remember, working for the Department of Public Safety with level 1 fingerprint clearance, I worked in the clearance level of the Department of Child Services, Child Protective Services in America. I never had a CPS record as an abusive father, a neglectful father, anything like that. And
yeah, you don't strike me as a person that does that. I've met you. I've met Neal. He's actually had lunch with me at my country club here in Oldsmar, and this guy is just a loving father. I mean, he doesn't have a violent bone in him. I mean, I guess any man could have a violent bone if you take your kids, and so that just shows how graceful Neal is that he's been extremely patient. How long has this been going on, Neal?
On July 25th of this year, it's going to be 8 years. And what happened was, when they were seized, essentially in brief, in Geneva, my past of my life, who I was, what I did, my holding level 1 security clearance, my not having any kind of accusations ever made against me in my past, except one by my ex-family-in-law in 2012, because I was exposing the molestation going on against my nephew. And so they falsified a case against me. Child Protective Services they didn't bury the case. There was no case. They investigated it. They walked away. There was nothing. There was no record. 2 years later, I became an employee working in the system. When we got to Geneva, there was no more American life. Our language was taken from us. We weren't allowed to speak English anymore. I had been speaking French because I speak French with my sons, teaching them from the time they were young, but suddenly everything was taken. Their crosses were taken off their necks, their crucifixes on their little necks, their Bibles were taken away, our language was taken away. And Phoenix Children's Hospital, actually, where my kids received their therapies for autism and my youngest son's physical challenges that he had, were actually the first ones to write to the government of Geneva 6 days after, on July 31st of 2017, saying, from the General Counsel of Phoenix Children's Hospital, which people think has a bad reputation of these medical kidnappings, saying, what are you people talking about in Geneva? No red flags ever with Mr. Sutz, period. And aside from my late wife's trauma and her own problems she had, she was the best mommy in the world. And our kids had no idea she had any problems whatsoever. We knew how to balance our lives. I worked from home. I was a daddy who worked from home. She had her sleep schedule. I had mine. We did handoffs. We did a lot of things together as 4 of us. Sometimes it was just me and the boys. Sometimes it was just her and the boys. We got to Geneva and nothing existed anymore. And that letter from PCH, from Phoenix Children's Hospital, which was rated by U.S. News and World Report as the #1 children's hospital in America, was literally thrown into the garbage, physically thrown into the garbage. So again, to remind everybody, my children were seized unlawfully. They were kept in the Geneva University Hospital for the first approximately 4 months. So from July to about November, December of 2017. And I didn't know what was going on. I thought to myself, what the heck is going on? It took me about a month to get a lawyer. We proved the case. There was never, the initial accusations were neglect and parental conflict. Okay, let's get aside from all the political stuff that started happening with them trying to send our kids back to America without our knowledge, to Duke University, to our ex-family-in-law, and to the University of Arizona, them being the Geneva Child Protective Services in collusion with certain people at the U.S. Embassy in Bern. I'm not talking about the former ambassador under Trump, Ed McMullen. I'm talking about ACS. This happened before he came in. This letter was written by a lawyer, a renowned lawyer in Switzerland, who was my fourth attorney, who had proved the case all the way to the Supreme Court, Terry Cazeneuve. Terry Cazeneuve also is a renowned filmmaker. He is a member of the American Swiss Foundation. He is a very close friend and colleague of Edward Ed McMullen, who, as most people know, is a decades-long friend, almost 40 years with President Trump. He is one of the most renowned diplomatic consultants and financial consultants in the world. This was written to the U.S. Embassy by my attorney when I had just found this attorney days before President Trump's first administration was over and Ed McMullen's term as ambassador was over. So I met my lawyer. He studied the case. He went over the entire thing. A couple weeks went by. I met him in person for the first time because we had been talking by phone, and he had been looking over the evidence, devouring it. We're sitting in his conference room, and he says to me, "Hey, Neal, have you ever tried to get in touch with the U.S. Embassy?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And I showed him the rest of the information on the American Citizen Services Unit and what happened with them. And I said, and he looks at me again and he gives me this odd expression. He goes, "Have you ever tried getting in touch with the ambassador?" I said, "Well, yeah, that's my right to do that. But no, for the last years, I've never been allowed to meet with him. Every time I asked to meet with him, they said no. The American Citizen Services Unit said no." So he says, he puts his hand out like this. He said, "Just hold on one second." Picks up his phone and he's doing something on his phone. I figure he's calling somebody. I don't know what he's doing. He's text messaging Edward McMullen, the ambassador, a couple of days before the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, was coming to an end. And as I said, Ed was leaving. He does a text. He's in silence. He's holding up his hand like this to me. And he goes, "Okay, this is in Zurich, Switzerland. I got him out of Zurich. We're in his office in Zurich. For people know that's not Geneva. That's another part of Switzerland." He goes, "Neal, I want you to go back to Geneva. I'm going straight to the embassy and meeting with Ed." I said, "Ed?" And I wasn't playing stupid. I was like, "Ed?" He goes, "Ed McMullen. I'm going to sit down with my friend who is the ambassador, Ed McMullen, and get him the information on what happened before he leaves and before the Trump administration is over. So he has the actual facts of what finally happened." And this is his friend, his colleague. They're on the American Swiss Foundation together. I mean, they're very connected, but it was too late.
And you have lawmakers backing all this up. I want to play this video. I'm not going to play all of it. You can find it. You can find a video at the bottom of this podcast. But guys, this is insane. Like, literally, to be an American family and have your children taken away by international CPS. Where is the America family that we stand for? Like, where is that right now? And check out this YouTube video. I was blown away when I saw this, and people need to see this. And I'm gonna play this right now.
I'm the United States Congress candidate here in District 7.
I'm Steve Robinson, Arizona Senate candidate, Legislative District 19.
I'm not going to play the whole thing. I just want people to see it a little bit.
Arizona House candidate for Legislative District 19. We are Arizona candidates and have been provided extensive files and videos and audio footage regarding a case of a father and his two sons. We are here today to make a diplomatic demand.
We are here this evening to formally, collectively make this political demand as a matter of international humanitarian urgency in support of American citizen and father Neal David Sutz and his two sons, Skylar and Corey, who have been detained by the Child Protective Services of Geneva, Switzerland for 3 years now. Today, July 25th, 2020, marks the 3-year anniversary of the seizure. The United States has failed to take action. This international political demand is directed to the President of Switzerland, Madame Simonetta Sommaruga, Swiss Justice Minister, Madame Corinne Keller-Sutter, Swiss Foreign Affairs Director, Mr. Ignacio Casas, and the entire Swiss Federal Council. Further, we respectfully request the full support in this demand of President Donald J. Trump and all members of the Trump administration who truly believe in the sanctity of the family, the U.S. Constitution, the inalienable rights of all American citizens, whether on American soil or abroad, and the inherent and irrefutable rights of falsely accused parents and the right to protection by their own loving, safe, caring families of all American children. wherever their American families may choose to reside.
Mr. Sutz, in agreement and partnership with his ex-wife, escaped Arizona with their children to Switzerland in June of 2017 as a result of being witness and reporting crimes of abuse against their young nephew here in Gilbert, Arizona. Mr. Sutz and his family then became targeted by those he reported and their affiliates.
What I'm going to show you is a disturbing image. So if you are unable to look at such stuff, please look away. This is an image of Mr. Sutz's nephew in the bathtub with grandfather Robert Bradford. I also have transcripts of body cam footage that was provided to us along with the actual body cam itself that we were able to view, where Miss Neal Sutz, the mother of the two boys, had tried to tell Gilbert Police Department about the pedophilia and the sexual abuse that was happening in the Bradford home.
Corey and Skylar were seized by Geneva, Switzerland's CPS with no validity whatsoever to justify their seizure from their father. No due process was ever offered to Mr. Sutz, and a litany of other U.S. federal and international human rights laws were broken in wanton disregard for the Sutz family, all while for 3 years now being covered up by a large group of politicians, journalists, diplomats, and government employees from Arizona to Washington, D.C., and as far as Switzerland. Corey and Skylar have been physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually abused since their illegal, unjustified, and anti-humanitarian seizure. They have been neglected, manipulated, and alienated from their father, all while in the custody of the Swiss government. The Swiss authorities state that it is in the best interest of the two little boys, and they deny the evidence of what has been done and is still being done to this day.
Again, I have some images for you. This is the two boys when they were with father prior to being detained by the Swiss government. We can see two happy, healthy young boys. This is a picture of the boy at father's visitation with sores on his face. And pictures of sores on the legs of the young boy due to neglect and failure to change a diaper. Mr. Sutz has long ago provided much evidence of any initial and subsequent legal allegations, proven completely stable by the testimony of 3 separate psychiatrists. He was deemed mentally balanced, well, and most importantly, the most important individual for Corey and Skylar to be immediately returned to. I have here testimony of attorneys and psychologists that submitted documents in favor of Mr. Sutz, notifying the courts in Geneva that he should have his children returned to him. Mr. Sutz has been persecuted as a whistleblower against a group of pedophiles, child pornographers, and child traffickers in the state of Arizona. He has followed the laws of Switzerland and the laws of the United States. He's been consistently cooperative and adhered to every request that has been made of him by the authorities that illegally seized and continued to detain his 2 sons. Neal Sutz was a long-time respected, generous, and well-known resident of the state of Arizona, where he lived with his ex-wife and their 2 young special needs sons from 2010 until June of 2017. Mr. Sutz dedicated nearly 2 decades of his life as a national advocate for a vulnerable population of adults and children as they journeyed to recover from mental illness and regain a life for themselves.
And guys, this video just keeps on going, and that's only 6 minutes in. Now, this is not conspiracy. This is actually happening right now. And so, Neal, I'm sorry you're going through this, man. It is my prayer that we shed light in the dark And I want people. When I first heard this, I couldn't believe it. I was baffled. I'm like, there's no way.
Well, of
And
course. No. The thing is, Carlos, nobody in the world would possibly believe this. That was 3 years in. That was on the 3-year anniversary of the kidnapping of my children. That's Josh Barnett, Shelby Bush, Stephen Robinson. I mean, these are high up Republicans in the state of Arizona. Unfortunately, after that video came out, that's when the deep state got really involved. And people can look, and I've made everything very public. I was not involved in politics whatsoever. But 3 weeks after that video came out and started circulating, I had interviewed, and the case had been investigated by every major influencer at the time, from Ann Vandersteel to Eric Matheny, who's also a lawyer, Jeff Dornick, Charlie Ward, Mel K, Kirsten Weldon, who passed away. I actually worked as the legal consultant to settle her estate after she passed away. That's a side thing, and introduced her to her fiance. She wasn't shipped off on a boat to China, by the way, and she didn't die of COVID. But this thing, after that video came out, it was so poignant that suddenly it was shut down. And when people talk, like you just said, about this isn't possible, this could happen, that was 3 years in.
Yeah.
I was everywhere. I was on national TV all over Europe talking about this. 3 weeks after that video, that's when the deep state got involved. And I had been detained at the State Department under orders of Mike Pompeo, who also turned on Trump. I was deeply involved in fighting for the election fraud here. And I'm not making comparisons between myself and President Trump whatsoever, other than the fact that he, myself, Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, and Peter Thiel were named with me on the list for some reason as the 5 biggest American conspiracy theorists by the largest liberal newspaper in Switzerland. And
that's a badge of honor these days, man.
Yeah, well,
most of them are right?
And I have, and President Trump and his administration have made it very clear that they are going after DEI. The only man that has stood between myself and getting my kids back in Switzerland is the European founder and head of the LGBTQ movement. And when I spoke out against the abuse that he subjected my sons to, that's when the country of Switzerland, the left side, because there's also a conservative side, it's called the UDC, kind of like the Republicans, if you will. Rhinos amongst them as well, but there are very good people that I know. Everybody knows the case was nonsense from the beginning. They know the case is purely political. The accusations, as I said, and as have been proven in the beginning, neglect and parental conflict, they went away. They subjected our family to what's called a psychiatric family expertise, which determined that I had a diagnosis of some at the last page of the DSM. I saw 5 psychiatrists for 800 hours who all determined that I had no mental illness whatsoever. Whatsoever. And the last psychiatrist that I saw for 2.5 years, just before I left Switzerland, because I finally had to leave to speak freely, because in Geneva, Switzerland, it's a republic, it's a canton. They have their own constitution. Even people in Switzerland say, Geneva's not Switzerland. Even he told me, a liberal Jewish psychiatrist who I'd seen for 2.5 years at the end, who did not share any of my political beliefs whatsoever. Okay. He was on a different spectrum. He was a conservative Jew in the sense of he wore a yarmulke. He was half Swiss, half American. His political beliefs were liberal. He said, Neal, look, he goes, all they're going to do is keep going around and around and around and around and around here. And maybe when your kids turn 18, you'll get them back. Maybe. So I left Switzerland in August of 2023 to be able to speak freely, because I had been detained by the police 82 times. I founded Switzerland for Trump, the first pro-Trump foundation in the world. I tried every means possible to get to President Trump, but Barr stopped me at the Department of Justice, Pompeo stopped me at the Department of State, and a false narrative. It's all been proven wrong. And now I haven't seen my children. They haven't seen me in 2 years. They were told I abandoned them when I went back to America to fight for them. Recently, I met you in Florida. I was in D.C. standing behind the south lawn of the White House. The case is nonsense. It's absolutely political. And these aren't just my words. These come from a former senator, Claudio Zanetti, Franz Gruber. The politicians have spoken out against this and against what happened to my family. The former chief inspector for the Geneva police was the first person to say, the only reason that Neal's kids were ever taken is because he was a whistleblower against a group of, just like it says in the video. I've never changed my story. I never abandoned my children. And the saddest thing about this now is that since I left, they told my children I abandoned them. I didn't think it would take 2 years after blowing the whistle, because you're not allowed to speak freely in Geneva. People talk about the problems we have of freedom of speech in America. In Geneva, Switzerland, you speak out, they
Anywhere
shut you
else.
down.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
that's anywhere else. I mean, there's no freedom of speech anywhere.
It's out of hand. And there's one mother also who has her kids at the same group home. Just because she and I became friends, they punished her and her kids. And she has fought and fought and fought. And the rest of the parents, they've given up on getting their kids back.
Yeah.
People just give up. And it's,
Well, let me stop you there real quick, Neal, because I think the audience understands like this is a crazy injustice, and that video is powerful, and you can find it below this podcast if you want to watch the whole 20 minutes. I think it's 19 minutes long, but let's shift gears here.
Yep.
How can the American people help you get your children back? What is it that we can do today to help get your children, your boys back? And I know you said that you wanted to donate some domains. And if you want to talk about like the powerful value of these domains and how Big Pharma is controlling everything, I want to bring this all full circle, because the mental, basically the attention span of the listener is not more than 20, 30 minutes. Hopefully this story has captivated longer than that, but I want to make sure that you get the platform to discuss like what else is at stake here and what you actually are donating just for the greater good of several people that have the same enemy that we're fighting, how we can help them, help you, and help your family. Did I lose you, Neal? Hey guys, Carlos here. I've had some technical difficulties. I mean, you can formulate your own opinion. I'm having a hard time recording this podcast because of, I think you understand. I think you understand when you go against the grain, when you go against and exposing the lies, the technology all of a sudden just stops. It just literally stops. The phone calls, the emails, the Zoom meetings, the encrypted messaging apps don't even work. Like it is terrible what actually happens. Like this man, all he wants to do is get his children back. And unfortunately, it comes at the cost of exposing people. So, Neal, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back. Let's go.
So, as you guys know, we're having a lot of technical difficulties just talking about this because it's just so censored. And that's why I love this story, because at the end of the day, the children are hurting and we want to get this message out before it gets deleted. So there's a whole thing that I want to bring actually full circle. If you waited this long, if you heard this long, please just give me a few more minutes and let's bring this whole thing full circle. So I understand, Neal, that your background is actually an expert in domains and that you've actually donated some domains so that we could sell them and that the profits could go to patriots like Mike Lindell that is actually fighting the illegal voting system that he got doxxed on, right? And so he has a big problem going on right now. And how is you helping Mike Lindell going to help your children get your children back? So talk about that. We got like 5 minutes and then I got to split, but the floor is yours, Neal.
All right, let's do a real brief. I got into selling generic.com domain names to pharmaceutical companies and lawyers back in 1998. My first domain name was switzerlandbank.com. I sold it for $25,000. That's how I funded publishing my first book and my first films. When the COVID thing happened, let's not get into the whoever's opinion or whatever. I actually ended up purchasing. Okay, so during the spring of 2021.
Yep.
During the spring of 2021, knowing the enormous industry that the .com domain name industry is, it is not.
So what he actually is trying to say, guys, I've tried like 3 or 4 times, and you guys know like the matrix, the blocking. You guys understand this very well. I can't even have an interview with him because everything about this guy has been doxxed, like from communications. What I want to say is that he's actually donating some amazing domains, and the whole goal is to sell them. He has, I believe, COVID vaccine nearme.com. covidvaccine.com. He has 3 domains that are just extremely popular. And the pharmaceutical companies, what they do in order to advertise the vaccine, they buy these keywords, they Google them, and they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you Google COVID vaccine 19, you get these URLs that pop up. And so if you have the URLs with the keywords, they're worth millions of dollars. So our whole goal is actually to sell these domains, so that he can get the money to help out victims, to help out his family, and to get his children back. So that is really the main goal. Neal, I know you've been going in and out. I've been trying to talk on what you're trying to do, but give us your 2 minutes on what the domains are going to do and how we can help you.
It's covidvaccine.com, covid19vaccine.com, covidvaccinenearme.com, and covid19vaccinenearme.com. No matter what's happening with the COVID vaccine, those domains, based on the calculations that are used in that particular industry of intellectual property, are valued at $2.5 million as of when I first met you. That they fluctuate in value just like stocks do. My goal is to get that, to sell these domains very quickly, to give that money to Mike Lindell, because I fought on the European side. I was on national TV all over Europe, fighting the election fraud, proving the election fraud, and getting accused and having lawsuits thrown against me all over the place. I saw what was happening to Mike Lindell and other people. So it absolutely broke my heart what was happening to Mike Lindell, because when I tried to get to all the people I tried to get to so I could get the actual truth to President Trump, no more gatekeepers, I kept seeing what was happening to Mike Lindell. He was spending every penny he had to prove the same thing that I was proving. I was on in front of 5 million people on Italian national TV, proving, not only talking about the election fraud, but proving it like he was. And then he's getting sued and I'm getting sued over here. I got all the problems going on with my kids. All the money that I did have, the big villa that I did have, it never got me out of it, because the situation with my kids was never about money. It was an absolute simple political conspiracy, just like the conspiracy against Mike. So my pillow got off, but he's got to pay all this money to Eric Coomer. So my goal is, I wanted to get either to Mike Lindell, who I know when I talked to him on the phone briefly for 25 minutes through you, grace to you, and was able to first start talking to him, to help him get these domains sold. They can either be sold to the pharmaceutical industry, they can be sold to the law firms that are suing people that have had COVID issues, or they can be sold to anybody else. They can be sold to HHS, and their valuation is $10.5 million at least. That money can go directly to Mike Lindell. And if the truth of that one video and that one letter, and the fact that now after 2 years of me being out of Switzerland, my kids are so alienated, they think I actually abandoned them, and they've integrated into this LGBTQ psychoses. They think I'm just gone and I gave up, which is never the case. And the proof of not only the wrongful seizure and kidnapping of my children can get to President Trump so he can liberate my sons, have them return to me immediately and unconditionally. We can use Mike's incredibly large audience to help people understand that the guy that has, I don't have money left anymore. Money doesn't matter to me. I can publish my books again. I can put out my films again. I want this money to be able to go to Mike, to help him to fight for election integrity, for everything that he's lost and everything that he's given up, and to be able to have a direct connection to President Trump so he can get the one letter that shows the truth.
Of course, he gets cut off again.
The goal being, in summary, is that Mike Lindell suffered his reputation and money. I suffered my reputation and money. I don't care about money anymore, but Mike's over there. He needs it. Now he's got to appeal this. He's got to pay Coomer all this money. It's absolute BS what's happening to him. And my only goal is to be able to get the truth finally to President Trump. And to be able, when my kids and I are reunited, just like President Trump has been, when he is aware of the truth of an American citizen or something happening to an American abroad, he fixes it like that. And he might have heard about my family, but he got the false narrative. Get the truth to him. Mike Lindell is clearly, we all know, one of his closest friends in the world, and help Mike and use the context that Mike has so people, whatever, whether it's Pfizer or whether it's HHS that buys the domains or whether it's a law firm, it doesn't matter. Domain names are sold for millions and tens of millions of dollars every day of the week, and it's been happening since the internet began. And I
Well,
want to be
we're
able to
gonna
get
help you.
directly to President Trump.
You have my word. We're going to
And
help you
that's the
sell these
goal.
domains. They are for sale. And could you repeat those domains again so someone could actually hear it again?
Absolutely. And I'm happy to provide any information directly. And Carlos, you can give out my my direct information, my contact email to anybody you want, or through you, however you want to do it. COVIDvaccine.com, COVID19vaccine.com, COVIDvaccinenearme.com, and COVID19vaccinenearme.com. They are the top 4 domains in the entire industry, either for Big Pharma to use, for the lawyers who are suing Big Pharma, or for doctors that are helping people, or for HHS, because God knows we all want to help Mike Lindell. And I want to get to the President of the United States and with the truth, no more delays. Summer break's happening in 5 days. Haven't seen my kids in 2 years. And the alienation between my sons and I needs to be repaired.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, guys. I couldn't finish it, but it's just an amazing story. We have COVIDvaccinenearme.com, COVIDvaccine19.com up for sale. He's actually donated it to us, Scriptures and Wallstreet, so that we can sell them and actually donate to Mike Lindell. If you want, or if you have anybody that is interested in that, just shoot me an email at info@cortezwm.com, or you can simply just share this podcast with someone that might be in the interest of that. But the whole goal is here, not the money. The whole goal is actually to get Neal's kids back. So Neal, I appreciate you coming on today. I'm sorry we're up today. We could talk for hours on this. However, we'll have you back on with some updates, and I'm sure there'll be some great updates. So for those of you that are watching, don't forget, like and subscribe to Rumble channel. Go to CortezWM.com. Book your appointment with us to look at your retirement. Is it war ready? You need to have a war-based retirement, war-ready retirement that can allow you to navigate this World War III that will possibly happening. Right? We understand that Iran is pretty much the hoax here. It's Israel that's might manipulate Iran to. Might manipulate us thinking that they're bombing America when it's possibly Israel itself. So don't get fooled. We are here to help. We want to protect your retirement, guys. Like, you more than ever have to get your money out of the banks, get your money right where, hey, if there is a war and the market does crash, how are we going to take advantage of it? Well, give us a call. We want to help you. There's so many strategies I can talk about, but I'm up in time. Check out this weekend. I'm going to show you some stock ideas that I'm looking into. Again, not investment advice, but some things that I'm looking into that are going to be, in my opinion, profitable in the next market crash during war. If that's you, take a look at this podcast this weekend. But for now, God bless you. I'm out of here. And don't forget to go to fixtheblood.usa.com and get that blood cleans. I started mine this week and I feel great. So we will be talking. God bless. Bye.